My guest. Maybe he can help get us through it. He has figured out how to not just live in this world, but thrive. He's amazing. New York Times best-selling author, but I think that that's not the best thing that he does. I don't think. I don't think. Author of Between the World and Me, and the latest, The Message, Broken Glass Everywhere, but not that. It's a different kind of message. He is here. He is joining us, the one and only Ta-Nehisi Coates. Welcome.
Wow. Thanks for having me, Karen.
You know, yes. Okay, so I expressed to you that I'm mourning,
Mm,
but then I have to ask myself, did I what what died? So I have to ask
mm,
myself, what am I mourning? And I don't think I have a good answer.
mm.
Where are you right now?
Oh, you're probably not gonna like what I have to say.
Oh, it
uh,
doesn't matter. I don't have to like what you have to say. We have to hear it though.
I mean, look, it's obviously clear that Trump is going to hurt a lot of people, and a lot of folks that we care about, a lot of folks who need the protection of a democracy are really, really going to be hurt and injured. And so for me, like, there is no real question about who the preferred candidate was in this election, none at all. Um, at the same time, I think we have to ask ourselves something. So one of the great dilemmas of Black people in this country is that we have always suffered um, under a predicament where democracy or America's claims to democracy were effectively balanced on our backs and on our bodies. That is the essence, for instance, of not talking about slavery in the run up to the 1850s and the 1860s as the price for union. That is 1876, Rutherford B. Hayes, and the compromise where they leave us to the Ku Klux Klan in order to have unity. That is the GI Bill, all of the great programs that Franklin Roosevelt put forth, and we were cut out of as they built an American middle class. We have borne that. And I do have to ask, as a kind of provocation, what right we have to a democracy over here that exacts the price of genocide in defense of apartheid over there.
Ooh, now, okay, we just jumping in. All right. I feel like we need to not have likes and dislikes around commentary and conversations
Mm,
and thoughtfulness, right? Because you put a lot of thought into this. I sat with your book for a week, and partly I was trying to wait to get to the part where everyone was mad at you. I was like, okay, that's reasonable. Okay, what's the problem? Like, so I get to the final 35 minutes, and I said,
mhm.
oh, I see where
Oh, you did the
I see.
audiobook?
Yeah, I got the audiobook
Yeah.
because you're
Because I read it.
talking too
Thank
much.
you for doing that. Because I
Yeah,
did that intentionally. Thank you.
I know. And I feel like you're talking to me, like you're in my ear hole,
Hmm.
and I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah, even, you're grappling with your name and navigating, how to, engage with people around that. I mean, it was just beautiful, and a nod to your dad and all, and your
Yeah.
mom. It was beautiful getting to know you even more. But to this question, that burning question in the last 30 minutes, I said, oh, I see, because now all of the hypocrisy is on full display. And you did that
Yeah.
so masterfully. I said,
Yeah.
how do they wiggle out of this?
Yeah.
How do they wiggle
Yeah.
out? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I think it's hard to wiggle out because it's obvious and it's true and it just is. And what was most shocking about my time in Palestine and in Israel proper was how blatant the discrimination was, how blatant the system of apartheid was, how usually I'm used to systems of repression that are more clever and more hidden and more insidious. This was obvious and violent and clear. And it is a system that America's political class or ruling political class is in agreement on in terms of its endorsement of. Uh, the Zionist perspective was going to win whether Trump or Kamala won. Now, it certainly had a preferred candidate. And one of the reasons why it had a preferred candidate because a presidential candidate is not just a candidate; they're also the coalition that is behind them. And so there was people within that coalition for Kamala who certainly were going to pressure her in a way that we simply cannot trump. Nonetheless, the stated views of the candidate were not anti-apartheid, were not anti-genocide. We who are the children of an experience of apartheid, and in the case of indigenous Americans, directly related to genocide, and I guess you could argue for the Middle Passage of genocide too. It's a
Absolutely.
profound moral question for us.
So, but we live here. Well, some of us. I met you like 5 years ago, and you were living in France with your family, and on book tour, coming into the States, which gives you a profound perspective. But I met you lyrically in the Atlantic, and it was the case for reparations that I printed out and read on the portions of it on the air and recommended it to everyone, which I thought was the quintessential drumbeat to making an argument that was sober and factual, and it led me to different books. And I was like, who could argue with this, right? But as Black people, we do have this complicated relationship with this country, right? And most of us only live here, and a lot of us don't even have a passport. So we ain't going, we talk a lot, but we ain't going nowhere. And Africa is not necessarily our home anymore. We are a new thing. We are something torn and new. So for us, the question is, in Michigan and in certain states decided to make a decision, and I'm being redundant on purpose, to either not vote for the president and then my question was always, what do you think is going to happen under Trump? At least we can be in the streets protesting Kamala Harris. We will not be able to do that to him. You will either be dead or in jail. So what do you think was the gain here? Was there a gain?
Well, I've been fortunate because throughout this book tour, actually, I've not spent most of my time arguing with people on podcasts or on network TV. I've actually spent probably more of my time in Palestinian communities and in Palestinian American households and talking very directly with people about this and about the hard question. And I think two things. I think from my perspective, as a Black person, as a Black voter born in the tradition of Black politics, I agree with you. I think, like I said, I think there was no, like, these are not, these two candidates are in no way equal. I just don't believe that. I think you could have put pressure on one in a way that you cannot on the other. At the same time, part of my work as a writer is to try to sit in the positions and in the seat of other people. And I have to tell you, it was not a rare experience for me to talk to somebody and for them to say something like, a sixth of my family is dead, killed by American bombs. That happened like in Oakland, for instance. I'm sitting next to a guy, he just told me straight up and down. It was not uncommon for me to talk to people and them tell me that when I go to Israel, my American citizenship really doesn't mean anything, and I am discriminated against and prevented from visiting certain places that you, Ta-Nehisi, could visit. It was not unusual for people to tell me things like, even before this genocide began, that my family is from Gaza, was originally from somewhere else and ran into Gaza, and has effectively lived in an open air jail where they do not have access to the fish in the sea, where they can't get access to adequate health care, where soldiers will shoot them if they get too close to the border, and that system is upheld by this country. And so, like, I have to ask myself, were I them, am I so magnanimous that I could hear Joe Biden endorse the killing of my family, hear Kamala Harris not part from that? Am I so wise that I could look past all of that and pull the lever for somebody that was not promising to end the killing, that had made no promises to not continue to? Am I really that person? And I think a lot of us need to sit with that. I'm not debating about what was 1 + 1 = 2. That's not my point. But my point is, can you really be so sure that if you were sitting in that seat, you could do that addition?
Listen, you are, and I think this is the crossroads that we find ourselves in. And I'm post this, when I get through wherever I'm going through emotionally, we're going to land on a place that we're going to have to make some decisions, right? As people, as human beings, right? And I always said this election was going to be, the difference between humanity and the lack of that. Is going to be a whole host of, like you said, pain and suffering that will be coming with it. And I don't want anyone to suffer. But maybe this needed to happen for a lot of reasons. So I'm not going to question it. But moving forward, where do we go from here? King asked us community or chaos. I'm doubling down on community. The chaos is here,
Yeah.
but what does community look like? I was sharing yesterday, I just finished The Penguin, and I know you are a big comic book, more Marvel, the
Yeah,
Black
I haven't watched The
Panther.
Penguin yet.
Yeah, yeah.
I hear it's
It's all
great.
it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But my question to the audience yesterday, because I'm always looking for those nuggets to find things to talk about that is deeper than the TV show. When did we start rooting for the bad guys? When did we allow the narrative around horrible people, whether it's Al Capone or Tony Soprano, for that to be our allegiance, And it's wild. Cowboys and Indians. We were rooting for the Cowboys. How wild is that as Black people? And so, I think about that, and we live in America. So America's always going to be the good guy, right? I mean, don't we want America to win? Don't we want to live in a nation where people aren't dropping bombs on our houses, that we can, knuck a few buck to somebody and know that we can still go to Whole Foods and live on, so it's a weird thing, right? Being Black in America, where we like our creature comforts.
Yeah.
We're not willing
Yeah,
to
no.
sacrifice, Ta-Nehisi.
Yeah, but I would push back. I mean, the best of us have though, and I think there's some spirit of that is still in us. I mean, when the initial ceasefire bills first started, I mean, for a while it was all representatives of color. If you took the polls and you looked at who was most sympathetic to the Palestinians and who was most concerned about what was happening in Gaza, Black people were inordinately concerned. I'm talking about in mass, as a mass, they were inordinately sympathetic. So because on some level we know. Now, we were kind of, caught in a situation in which we were trying to stave off a catastrophe. And not only that, the agent of staving off that catastrophe was a Black woman, who stepped into her Blackness in a particular kind of way. And so, look, I'm Howard. I understand the appeal. I get it. I totally get it. I totally get it. But I don't, and this, I got to be honest with you, this comes out of my time in Israel. It's a dangerous thing when you forget the lessons of your own oppression, or when you decide that the real lesson of your oppression is that it just should never happen to you, but it can happen to anybody else.
Anybody else, yeah. Now, I mean,
I think that's a
the
dangerous
message.
place to be.
I mean, that's the message of the message. It hits you in your soul. Those of you who listen to the book, reading it, and so I bought the book physically because your prose is so. I was like, I need to see this on the page. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, mwah, chef's kiss to you. But listening to it, I'm very clear morally, so I don't really have those. I'm not. I'm willing to give, like, I'll give up all of the things if everybody could be good, right? And I've reckoned with myself. But where do we go from here? We are here now.
Right.
I don't want to litigate it. We're not going back and forth. Whatever people do with the recount, that's on them. But where do we go from here in your estimation?
Well, I'm not, I don't do political parties or organizing. I'm a writer. You know what I mean? So there are probably going to be a lot better people and smarter people who can talk about that for me. I do think that you can't be like against what the Democratic Party did in 1964. And before them doing it in 2024. Like you need clear, coherent policy. So if we are for, and I am, for the sanctity of women's bodies and their autonomy, like we can't suspend that when bombs are being dropped on them that are shipped from, America. I want to challenge just a little bit, in a very friendly manner. The notion of
Stop it. Stop. You ain't got to do that here. You ain't got to do that.
I am. No, it's important.
There's no preambles here, Ta-Nehisi. Talk your talk.
I know, but it's important. I do want to challenge the framing at the behest of a friend of mine, actually, of over here and over there. And I want to say to you, though it takes some amount of difficulty for folks like us, and I think people don't always understand that, for us to get, quote unquote, over there is shockingly over here. When people say
where is over there,
yes.
Over here?
So when we think about like Palestine and Israel, like that is over here. That is an extension of the American state. It is the state of play could not exist without America. So to make this most explicit, forget the bombs that we provide. Every single fighter jet that flies over Gaza and drops a bomb is an American fighter jet. Period. Point blank. So there can be no, like, if America, was not providing planes, there would be no bombs dropped at all. We reinforce the defense system. For Israel, we say all the time that we have a special relationship with Israel. And see, when I went over there, and I saw the discrimination in somewhere like Hebron, where folks can't walk down the street, or I drove down the roads or rode down the roads in the West Bank where Palestinians cannot drive. When I saw the separate license plates, when I saw the water system, when I saw the housing segregation, I had to reckon with the fact that this was being done in my name because I'm an American. I had to reckon with the fact that this is the country that goes around and tells everybody that we have overcome this period of segregation, that claims Martin Luther King as this patron saint. And I have to ask myself, am I going to allow that? Am I okay? So like over there is over here. You understand? Like our resources, our legacy, it's there. It's difficult for us to get to, and I understand that. Like you said, we don't tend to have passports. We're not the most privileged class of people who get to travel, and see things. But trust me, there are awful things being done in your name.
So you're saying there's no middle ground. I just said this whole thing because you're neither hot nor cold. I spat you out. There's no lukewarm. You got to pick a side, right? You cannot.
I think if we saw it, we wouldn't want it lukewarm.
Right.
You see, you would want
right,
no part
but that's that's the thing though, from the media. But we also choose our media. We choose not to know whether it's the abuse in our family. That everybody knows, the uncle, whatever. Nobody says anything. We sit across from them on Thanksgiving and say nothing. It is, to me, the most American thing is to ignore anything that makes us feel uncomfortable and move on. So we have some things to do.
My days are cooler, nights are warmer, and I put the blame on you. Time moves slow, but my heart beats faster. When these eyes are looking right at you, you give me something to believe in, just what I needed. You're the closest.